Hey, Austin here, or should I say Shrek. I got the Shrek drip for real this time, my new costume, and I bring you today what may be the most early 2000s product ever made, the McFarlane Toys Shrek NASCAR action figure. Yes, this is real. This is not a joke. This was a real product that was made that you could have bought with your hard-earned shekels back in the glorious days where all little Austin could care about was watching his beloved Jeff Gordon on the TV and playing with his Shrek action figures. I am truly a product of the 2000s to a T. You ever see those memes that are like, if you were born in the early 2000s, you know these things? Well, that was me to a T. I was obsessed with Shrek and NASCAR. Probably the two pieces of pulp culture that would go on to kind of define the 2000s, at least for boys. I wasn't into Bratz, but, you know, even Bratz could not escape Shrek. That shows, like, how much of a cultural touchstone Shrek was, that even Bratz got affected by Shrek. But yes, NASCAR and Shrek was a real thing. So I bought this set right here because, I mean, how could you say no? Look at this. This is like the greatest action figure set ever. You get Bobby Labonte and Shrek. Two heroes right here. This set was made by McFarlane Toys, who made the toys for the original Shrek film, but it was released for Shrek 2. So this set is a total oddity. I mean, just look at it. But there is some interesting things about this set that I want to talk about before I crack it open here. The original Shrek toy line was made by McFarlane Toys. It was McFarlane's first kids toy line. I mean, kids were buying Spawn action figures, but he was really targeting that adult collector market. But with Shrek, Todd McFarlane himself designed a line of toys that could be played with by kids. And it was a really groundbreaking toy line. The figures looked amazing, and they still look better than most toys today. Really state-of-the-art stuff. They scanned all the 3D models and beautifully translated them into toy form. And it was just an awesome toy line. I would love to do a video with all of the McFarlane Shrek toys. Unfortunately, they're quite expensive, and I actually don't own any of them. I only have Lord Farquaad, but with this set here, I finally get my first 6-inch McFarlane Shrek. I don't have any of the McFarlane Shreks, but now I do. But by the time Shrek 2 came around, Shrek went from being this small fantasy movie. It was kind of a pet project by Jeffrey Katzenberg, who, you know, he had more money than he could ever need. So he made Shrek basically as a giant screw you to Michael Eisner, the CEO of Disney. The whole movie is a giant lampoon of the Eisner-era Disney. Even the film's villain, Lord Farquaad, is made to look like Michael Eisner. You know what? Hang on a second. I have my Shrek shelf right here. And here's my Lord Farquaad McFarlane figure. You can clearly see the head is a dead winger for the great Michael Eisner, the CEO of Disney. And say what you will about Michael Eisner, I thought he was a really wonderful leader for Disney, especially compared to what we've seen in recent years with the Chapek administration. Like, you know, we could use you, Michael Eisner, we need you now. But, you know, those internally at Disney were not a fan of him, and they called him F-Wad. You can imagine what that means. So Michael Eisner, the F-Wad, became Lord Farquaad, and he got this action figure, which You know what? If that whole sequence of events had to happen to get me this action figure of Michael Eisner, then it was totally worth it. But yeah, that's McFarlane Shrek line. But by the time Shrek 2 came out, Shrek had become a cultural icon, and the licensing fee was raised, and a small company like McFarlane Toys is independent. They've always been independent, and I've always really respected that with Todd McFarlane. He never took the company public. He never answers to shareholders. He takes a loss on his toys. Really, he does. He actually takes a loss on a lot of his figures because the man really just wants to make good toys and put them in collectors' hands. He really is one of the best figures and leaders the toy world has ever had. But by the time Shrek 2 came around, the big boys got involved. And Hasbro made Shrek action figures for Shrek 2, and they're not nearly as good as the McFarlane figures. You can just tell by looking at it. They're charming figures. Some of the accessories are quite fun, like Shrek has the potion and the sunflower from the first movie that he gives to Fiona, but they're much cheaper and much worse quality. So when Shrek 2 came around, McFarlane did not have the Shrek license, but McFarlane did recently get the NASCAR license. They made a couple waves or so of these really richly detailed NASCAR action figures. And I actually remember these figures because when I was 4 years old, 4, somewhere around there, I had an unhealthy obsession with Jeff Gordon. Like, I lived NASCAR. If I wasn't thinking about Shrek, I was thinking about NASCAR. And I was obsessed with Jeff Gordon. I made my parents give me I made them take me to the NASCAR cafe in Las Vegas, which was a real thing, and it cost a fortune, but my parents spent it because they loved me, and bought me the Jeff Gordon jacket that I would wear around, and I'd pretend I was Jeff Gordon. And one of the things I got was an action figure of Jeff Gordon, the McFarlane one, and I remember getting it at GameStop. GameStop carried these NASCAR figures, and that was probably the first, collector action figure I can remember getting. I was only 4 years old, and I got this beautifully detailed McFarlane Jeff Gordon action figure. And even, from the tender age of 4, I knew not to, play doinky doink play with that one. You don't slam them against other figures. That one kind of sits on the shelf, and, you look at it and admire it, and it's a fun collectible more than it is a toy. So maybe that McFarlane Jeff Gordon figure is why I'm into toy collecting the way I am. I've always just been the type of kid that I did play with toys, but I also understood the collectability of toys. And, the collector figures, I like them. I just display them all around here. So McFarlane had the NASCAR license and was doing these NASCAR figures. I thought the line went on a lot longer, but I did some research in the line. Let me get out my tablet here. Like the 60-year-old man I am, I use a giant tablet. Phones are too tiny. And, yeah, look, okay. There's the figure. There's Jeff Gordon. He was in a Pepsi uniform. I remember that, and he's doing this with his hand. And he's not posable. He doesn't have any posability. But the figures are very beautiful, and they're very detailed. They made Dale Earnhardt Jr., Jamie McMurray, Kevin Harvick, Elliott Sandler. At one point, I'm reading down the list here, but I could name you every one of these NASCAR drivers off the top of my head. I knew every one of them. I was so into NASCAR. And they made them for only a few years, but one of the ones they made was Bobby Labonte. Now, Bobby Labonte, he had a long NASCAR career. He's still racing. I just read this great article about how in 2020, Bob Labonte had a serious health scare. Get this. The 2000 NASCAR Cup champion, in 2020, he was diagnosed with kidney cancer. He was having issues with his lung, and his appendix exploded all at once. And the doctors gave him 10 hours to live. How about that? Now, miraculously, he came through the surgery alive. He has all sorts of health complications now and has to go in for regular checkups. But he is still racing, because he believes if he stops racing, he'll die. And you have to admire that in a man. Your kidney explodes, you have cancer, and your lung is collapsing. And you still want to race a stock car 500 times around a circle and slam into other cars. So, Nothing but massive respect for Bobby Labonte. But this set here was back when he was in his prime. This would have been only a few years after he won the 2000 Cup, and he was the hot stuff in NASCAR. Because he was sponsored by Shrek 2, and had Shrek all over his car, they could license that as a separate license from Shrek. So even though Hasbro was the only company that could make Shrek action figures, McFarlane could make NASCAR action figures. And technically, Shrek was a NASCAR character at the time, because he was on Bobby Labonte's car. And remember, McFarlane made Shrek toys for the first movie, so Todd McFarlane probably thought of this genius plan himself, that he could get around Hasbro's legality by making Shrek 2 action figures that were specifically NASCAR Shrek 2 action figures. And he didn't even have to spend any new money on tooling, because all he had to do was repaint the existing Bobby Labonte figure, add a Shrek logo on his back, and then paint Shrek to be wearing the Bobby Labonte uniform, and create this awesome gift set. I also can't help but wonder if Hasbro owning the Shrek 2 figure license prohibited these from being stocked on store shelves, because I never saw this at like a Target or Walmart. Trust me, little Austin would have screamed and cried until he had it. On the top, there's Shrek and Labonte again. On the side, we see some beautiful hand-painted prototypes that never look as good as the final product. And on the back, we have them again, as well as this strange key art of Shrek and Donkey. Just the design of this package is so, I don't know, strangely modern. Like, I feel like this could have came out yesterday. McFarlane was always just so ahead of the curve when it came to toys. Way ahead of whatever junk Hasbro was making. It does say here on the back, special limited edition NASCAR 2-pack featuring fan favorite driver along with one of the animated stars of the film Shrek 2. For more information on these and other McFarlane action figures, go to actionmcfarlane.com. I don't know if that website address still works. actionmcfarlane.com. Probably just mcfarlanetoys.com. But the website is really good, and they have an archive of all their existing figures. And I was just looking the other day, and they have a beautiful pictorial archive of every Shrek product they released, which is great for a collector to keep track of it all, and also interesting because it uses the new Shrek logo, the one that's kind of, see, if you look at the old Shrek logo, it's very rendered in 3D 2000s, whereas if you look at merchandise now, they use a flat Shrek logo that's kind of a flat green typeface. And the McFarlane website uses that new Shrek logo, which, I don't know what that means, but there's a small bit of hope in there. That is praying to God that Todd McFarlane gets the Shrek license back for Shrek 5, because McFarlane would do wonders with the Shrek license today. I mean, the toys he made back then were pretty cool, but could you imagine, like, with the modern enhancements and articulation, how good those would look? Like, try to imagine a 6-inch, fully articulated Death from Puss in Boots. That would be like the GOAT action figure. Totally amazing. I'm freeing them. 20 years later, yes, we're nearing the 20th anniversary of Shrek 2. How depressing is that? I feel so old. I was there opening day for Shrek 2 and for Shark Tale, which came out the same year. It was a double whammy that summer. Summer opened with Shrek 2 and ended with Shark Tale. Truly amazing. 2004, man. 2004, what a year. Shrek. I'm gonna flip the camera so we can take a better look. A better look at these guys right here. So here's what is included in the package. It may not look like much, but trust me, these figures are very hefty, very weighty, and very big. we're gonna wait on Shrek and first check out Labonte, which has a really, really amazing detailed likeness. McFarlane always nailed it, and like, that looks just like how Bobby Labonte looked at the time. Yeah, unfortunately, he doesn't look like this now. You know, it's been 20 years, but if you look up similar photos of him from around this time, yeah, it's a dead winger. The outfit is also incredible. Look at the amount of wrinkles and weathering in his racing suit. Really, really impressive. Also, all of the sponsorship decals are present. That's surprising. You'd think for sure that some of these companies would not sign on for an action figure. Look at Shrek and Donkey right there. But they did good. Like, they're screen printed perfectly. It really captures the authentic feel of NASCAR. I was always a fan of these bright, colorful uniforms. They kind of remind me of superhero costumes. And look at that with Shrek and Donkey. Very detailed. And on the back it says BobbyLabonte.com to take you to his website. Now, there's only one gripe I had, even as a kid, I had with these figures. Are you ready? I'm going to go down. They always had these big metal plugs on these figures so that they can attach to their base and hold. And like, on one hand, I understand why you'd want them to clip nicely onto the base. On the other hand, you know, he can't stand independently. This means he is essentially a statue stuck to his base. He's only got one point of articulation, and that's in the head. So not the most articulated figure, but very detailed. He almost looks like one of those 3D printed figures you'd see at the mall in Las Vegas, right? Where they'll print you out for like $50. And let's assemble his base so he can stand. The base here comes in 4 pieces. We have Bobby Labonte, and then we have Shrek 2. So I'm going to assume one side of this base is for Labonte, and one side is for Shrek. There we go. Oh, this one's having a bit more trouble. There we go, so it's kind of like, you know, they're on the racetrack, like they're in the pit crew or something. Oh, almost looks like, hang on. His legs have warped a little from being in package so long. Okay, so that was a little bit of a pain in the ass because his legs were a little squished together from being in that blister card so long. So I kind of had to stretch the figure a bit to get him to stand. So this is why you need to open your toys, people, because, you know, modern packaging, I would say like since 2000, when Todd McFarlane himself pretty much invented the modern blister bubble, they stretch the figures if you leave them in package too long. So, open your toys. And now, we're going to take a look at the big guy himself, the mighty ogre, Shrek. And there he is. There is that handsome fella. First impression is that this figure is really striking and leaves quite the impression. He's big. He's really big. He may even be a little taller than 6 inches, almost near 7 inches, and he's very colorful. I always love a colorful, fun action figure. And while the original Shrek action figure is amazing, there is something just so charming about him being in this NASCAR racing jacket. Even if the jacket itself is just a recolor of his tunic, there's actually no new tooling here. All they did was take off the tunic of the original Shrek figure and put this giant graphic all around him to make him look like he's a NASCAR racer. Is it incredibly cheesy and nonsensical? Yes. But is that not the world of Shrek itself? Like, it is fully believable to me that Shrek would become a NASCAR racer, one reason or another. And funnily enough, at the time of this video, we're about a month away from the brand new Shrek racing game for the PlayStation. So, you know, it only took 20 years later, but Shrek is finally hopping in that car and taking it to the circuits. The face here is truly amazing. This is definitely the best Shrek likeness ever. No figure competes with this. It's amazing. It looks just like the model. He's even doing the classic DreamWorks eyebrow raise. Now, if you collect the original McFarlane Shrek line, there is a closed-mouth variant where he doesn't show his teeth that is much rarer than the original. So, if you own a McFarlane Shrek, check and make sure if you've got the regular version or the closed-mouth variant. Not that it matters, both are quite expensive on the aftermarket. Now, Shrek here curiously includes those horrendous NASCAR pegs I mentioned, so he can't stand on his own, he must go on the base. If I had to guess why they did this, because this figure didn't originally have pegs, he doesn't need to have these, and plus, this is kind of aimed at kids, being Shrek and all. What kid would want a figure with metal pegs? Well, if I had to guess a reason why, Hasbro probably had the exclusive rights to making Shrek action figures, and by putting these small pegs on Shrek's feet, that technically does not make this an action figure, but instead a display statue. The world of licensing, isn't it fun, people? Let's click Shrek onto his base. And there we go. Like Labonte, Shrek also had trouble attaching to his base. With a little bit of futzing, he clicked on just fine. And here is Shrek and Bobby Labonte together on the racetrack. All in all, a really, really fun and kitschy set that is right up my alley. It's so 2000s, it's so quirky and strange, and as someone that collects cartoon figures, you have to have this. Like, it's just such a conversation piece. I can imagine anyone looking among a pile of my figures and pointing this one out and going, why is Shrek in a NASCAR uniform? And that is a really, really good question, isn't it? But they look fantastic. The quality is there. This could have been a very silly and dumb crossover, but with the proper execution, honestly, it is something to be appreciated, and I'm quite happy to add this to the Shrek collection, the Shrek Collective. Yeah, I'm just happy to add my first McFarlane Shrek to my Shrek shelf, let's be honest. Now, there was a matching set that featured Donkey and another NASCAR racer, I believe Tony Stewart, which would be also fun to review. And plot twist, I've got the other set too. That's right, it's Tony Stewart and Donkey. I actually found this set at my local flea market for a couple dollars. Now, it's used, obviously, and you can see that Tony Stewart's hands have been clipped off. Seems he had a horrible racing accident, which is, probably not a nice thing to say, considering the man did have some unfortunate accidents, but yeah, his hands did not survive. Maybe a kid tried playing with this, and like I said, even though they were sold for kids, they're not really engineered for child play. But yeah, this is the other set. Tony here, like Labonte, nicely detailed, and he's got this Home Depot bright orange uniform that he was known for. He kind of ran with the Home Depot sponsorship for a while Labonte had the interstate batteries. And he's got another Shrek and Donkey graphic on the back. So, there they are. And then there's the graphics on the back. So, the figures are pretty much the same, except something really curious here. Look, you'll notice those pegs now on the base. And look, he's got regular peg holes. He's not like a statue. He doesn't have those metal pegs. So, is it just Donkey and Labonte that don't have these metal pegs? Or was there a running variant or change where those metal pegs were removed? Maybe due to parents complaining, like I speculated. They don't really make it clear that these kids' figures have metal pegs on the bottom. So maybe later on, pop Donkey off here. Look, they switched him out for regular plastic pegs, which I much prefer. They didn't give Donkey a racing uniform. What they did here was they kind of gave him a saddle, which I think is fitting. That's a fun way to incorporate the NASCAR branding. I mean, they could have just included a regular Donkey. I like that they went the extra mile and gave him a sculpted, kind of glued-on piece here that makes this figure unique from the regular McFarlane Donkey. He still does have his action feature, his jabbering jaw, as it was called, so he can talk and sing like Donkey does. See, these were McFarlane's first kids' toys. They've got fun action features. Oh, Donkey dead. And there we have it. There is the complete set of NASCAR Shrek 2 action figures by McFarlane Toys. What do you think of these? Do you think they're fun and charming, or do you think it's just another corporate cash grab? I don't know, I think they're kind of awesome. A dumb idea? Yes, but brilliant execution. Now to add these babies to the Shrek shelf. And there they are, look. Almost as if they were made for that big empty spot on my shelf. They fit perfectly. Now it's time to track down some more of those great McFarlane figures, because this Shrek collection could use a lot more filling out. That's all for today, and if you stuck around this long, you are a true all-star. Hey now.